Hello everybody, I'm Don Counts and welcome into Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. Today we've got a treat. We've got a living legend here in the house. We've got Mr. Teddy Barnes. Teddy, how you doing, buddy?
It's just Teddy, please.
Could be Theodore. I've heard it all.
Well, could be.
Yeah.
Could be Theodore.
Yep. Teddy been in the radio business pretty much all of his life. You remember Mike Freeland? He would go.
Oh, very well.
He would go. Teddy Barnes. Who is Teddy Barnes? Tell us a little bit. Tell everybody about some people out there may not have ever even laid eyes on you, but heard you for years on the radio.
Well, I'm a native of Howell, born on Cane Creek. Theo and Mary and Lloyd Barnes were my parents. I went to school at Howell University, of course, and graduated from the 8th grade and then went to the old Central High School. And, of course, I did farming when I was home as a boy and had a good time doing that. And after I got out of high school, in June, I went to Nashville to a business college. And by January, February, I was homesick, bad homesick. I wanted to come home. I went to school one day and worked at Sam Davis Hotel, nighttime soda jerk, and had some experiences there. Got held up one night.
Wow.
And then walked out. An old detective used to come by and he'd take me up to where I lived about every night. We turned the corner there at 7th and Commerce, walking out of the store, and there was a body laying there. We all stumbled over it.
Wow.
Things like that, Don.
Wow.
Boy, I tell you.
You've had a very eventful life.
Yeah.
As you did that, then what led you into the radio television?
Well, my mother and father let me come home
in
June. And she had a brother who married a lady who had a sister who had a son that worked at WHAL in Shelbyville. And that's where I started. He got me a job up there and went up there in 1948 and had a big time, real big time. And I stayed there until 1950. And I was called in August, the latter part of August, to be examined for the Korean War then, and of course that I was going to get married September the 10th. And I got notice that I was classified 4F. Flat feet was the reason.
Flat feet.
Flat feet.
Didn't hurt you in the radio business.
No, it didn't. No, no, it didn't hurt me. And started out back at here at WEKR in 1950.
Well, when you think about radio back in those days, I mean, it's amazing today, but it sure enough was amazing back in those days.
Oh man, it was something else. Yeah, we didn't have the equipment we have today. I've seen all the stuff come in. The old wire recorders.
Wow.
They were the first one we could use, and it was just like a electric fence wire, except a lot smaller, on a small reel about that big. And if you let it get tangled up, you had trouble. And they were something.
I actually saw one of those at WKR upstairs.
Yeah.
It was probably the one you used, I don't know, but basically the recording information was on the wire. And that was pretty neat. And each wire was so long.
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing.
Right.
That's way before my time, but that medium has come a long way. But so tell me a little bit more about you actually worked with some great people throughout the years.
Oh yeah, I sure did. Well, I guess to me it was my old buddy Ernest Tucker.
Oh yeah.
Boy, we were good friends, and I sure do miss old Ernest. Back in the early days of radio, you had to have an engineer on duty, and the announcer too. And George was the engineer that got that station on the air, you know. And then he got a little air time on the radio, and they let him play country music early in the morning. And then big band, that was the go back then.
Ernest just passed away about a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And he's been retired for a while, and you're in your retired outfit today. And you know, radio, as you said, has come a long, long way. And even today, as you drive down the road or watch television, or whatever, it's amazing. It comes into your vehicle.
Yeah.
And
I know.
And over the years, you've been on the air numerous times. I mean,
Yeah.
Hours upon hours.
Oh, yeah.
So as you went through WKR, you actually worked for one of the original owners, Porter Clark, correct?
Yeah, they bought it from a gentleman named Smith who put Winchester Station on the air in Fayetteville too, and they bought it from him. And I think 49 or early 50, I'm not sure. And of course, they were the owners then. And we worked a split shift then. We'd come in and work 3 hours and go home, come back and work 4 more.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the way it was.
Wow.
And we had about 3 announcers, and of course we had 3 engineers. And the transmitter's here over at Shelbyville. The transmitter was out of town.
Oh.
And we were downtown, upstairs over the drugstore. And the Carter family came up there one afternoon, Mother Maybell and all the girls, and they visited for a while.
Wow.
And it was really good to see them.
I bet.
And then, well, I go back to 1949. I and a friend went to the Grand Ole Opry headquarters and booked Hank Williams and his Drifting Cowboys. And I got to introduce them at the 64 Drive-In Theater on top of the concession stand.
Wow.
And Hank was a character, boy. He was just plain old boy. I liked him very much.
Very talented man, too.
Yes, he was. He sure was.
Over the years, as today, you know, things are a whole lot different. But back in those days, the artists would actually want to talk to the DJs and try to get them to play their music. And so I guess you've met a lot of
Jim Reeves came through Fayetteville one time and stopped and paid us a visit. Yeah.
Wow.
He was a nice fellow, too. And then, well, after I left here in '57, I went to the old Channel 8 TV and stayed there through 1960.
What'd you do there?
Well, I was an announcer. I did the weather, and I did the 6 o'clock news and commercials. And the weather is funny how we did it. They had a notebook-sized paper in the plastic. I'd call the Weather Bureau, and I had my black marker, and I'd check there's a high here, low there, and rain, you know how it would do. And then in the studio, they had a big screen, a plexiglass screen. It was about 3 by 5, had a map of the United States on it. Well, of course, you had to see it like it should be, United States, Maine over here, and here's California. And me standing behind it looked different.
Backwards.
Yeah, so to get the right picture, they had a reverse sweep on the camera.
Wow.
And turned the picture around, and I had a big black marker to mark, and that was our weather back then.
Wow.
We didn't have radar or any of that stuff.
Right.
And we had good weather forecasts too.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, when you think about all the radio days and different things that go on, the weather was a big part of what people wanted to. Wanted to know what the weather was going to be, and they lived their life, as you know, by your timing, and timing is so important.
Yeah,
and only people like you.
We stayed on time too.
Yeah,
we stayed on time. Back then, if you had a 30-second commercial, it was on 30 seconds. That if you had a 15-minute program, you had 14 and a half minutes, and left room for the break. And we had courtesy for sponsors. We wouldn't run a car dealer and then following him run another car dealer commercial. Right. We waited at least 10 or 15 minutes to spread them out. Now I've seen as many as 3 in a row.
Oh, I know.
advertise, and that's just not fair, I don't think.
But as you know, in your business of radio, as Teddy, as you've heard him on the radio, your job didn't end at 9 o'clock when you got off the air, because you had to sell.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You know as well as I do, car dealerships is worth spending the money.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yes, sirree.
Your job was interesting. If you think about the old time radio, which you mentioned, in 15-minute blocks, or 14 minutes, 30 seconds, you still lived pretty much by that. You still had the old home place, in the 15-minute block.
Yeah.
You still did the old radio days pretty much to the end.
We had the old programs, and of course we had good giveaway programs. We'd buy a big package of prizes, and at nighttime we'd play records and who could identify them, or the artist, and so on. That was a whole lot of fun. And then TV, I enjoyed that. I had a bop hop show on Saturday afternoons, TV bop hop.
What's that?
Well, that's when American Bandstand came on, got so popular, and the kids would come up and dance for an hour, and you'd play. I introduced the records and talked to some of them, and my first guest was Brenda Lee.
Wow.
And she had just started, and her mama came with her, and she was so small we had to get an empty milk crate and let her stand on that when I talked to her.
Wow.
To make it work out right for the camera.
Wow.
And she was a sweet little girl.
Yeah.
And,
she did Rocking Around the Christmas Tree.
Yeah, boy.
And made more money with that song than me you'll ever make.
Oh, my goodness, so. I guess so.
Yeah.
And then, well, Eddie Arnold was my guest one day.
Wow.
He was a great person, down to earth and humble. And Andy Williams, he came in town, and I had the privilege of having him there. And I never did have Pat Boone, but I met him at the airport and had a little interview with him.
Good.
And he was nice too. And I don't know, just a lot of people.
That time in your life gave you the love of real country music.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Tell everybody your feelings about country music. You have a good feel.
Well, country music is the kind of music that we can all associate with. The country music originally was recorded and written by people who had been there and done that. And they put feeling in it. They put words in it. And regardless of how old you were or where you were or what problem you might have, there was a country music song that you could associate with and make you feel that you weren't alone. Sure. It had heart and soul to it. But today's music, what's a good country song that gets to you? She thinks my tractor's sexy. I honestly believe, Don, if someone wrote Jenny Crack Corn and I Don't Care backwards, some wheel in New York would record it and send it to these so-called country music stations, and they'd play it.
You know, as you go through your life, you have gained, whether you want to think that or not, but it's true. You know how it is, but you've got a lot of fans out there, people who would call you every day, people who follow everything you did, people live their life by your, by what you've done.
Oh, they didn't watch the clock when I worked. They listened to what I was doing. And I played music that I liked and felt that you would like. And I tried to keep the tempo even with something kind of slow and pep it up some. And I played some bluegrass occasionally. That was great music too. And it's still very popular.
As you look at the flow of music, that is a very important thing. And most people don't realize how you have to think about a slow song into a fast song.
Yes, sir. I remember when George Morgan released Candy Kisses in 1949.
Great song.
And it was on the jukebox, and boy, it got worn out. And we wore it out at the radio station too, on the old 78 records, you know.
Yeah.
And I've seen the coming of LPs and 45 records, and now we're into CDs.
Oh yeah.
I never thought they would be successful, but they are.
I didn't either. I actually didn't. When they first came out, because there's nothing sweeter than the sound of an LP.
You got it.
It's great.
Yeah, you got it. And originally, our commercials we'd get from big companies like BC or Hadacol. They were on a big old 18-inch disc and had different cuts on them, and that's where we got prepared commercials.
Wow.
And then the tape, like they put on the tapes and the CDs today, or cassette tapes, that recording came into the picture next. And really great. The first TV tape machines, they came to WSIX, and they were brought in on the Allied van line, and they were about the size of that coffee table and about 6 inches wider.
Wow.
And stood up kind of like this, and the tape was about 1.5 inches wide on a big reel. And they were very fragile to handle, and of course you had to have 2 of those like everything else.
Oh yeah.
And that was something that I experienced and really enjoyed, and FM coming in too, as about 57 or so.
As you worked at the AM station and then moved to the FM station, that was a pretty big step for you to go across town to an FM. I mean, even though at the time when you moved, you know, people hadn't really just jumped over there yet.
That's true.
You had to actually build an entire audience.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And get them to come.
Well, people didn't have FM. A lot of people didn't on the radio back when I went there in 1980. And I don't know, I've always been amazed at the people who listened, the people you didn't think listened, but later you found out they did. And
one thing that is very popular in this area, and I don't know if it is all over the United States or world or what, but is the obituaries.
Yeah.
You know, people listen to that every day.
Yeah, and then, Don, hometown radio, it's nothing hometown anymore. We didn't think of charging a man to have his funeral arrangements announced on the air. And a lot of other things that they charge for now. And I don't know, then we wanted to be a friend of everybody and help everybody that we could. And of course we had to make some money at WEKR in 1950. A 30-second commercial was $1.
Wow.
And if you wanted a 60, it was 50 cents. And then we had little 10-second teasers for 50 cents. I mean, 30 seconds was $1.50. And boy, you had to sell a bunch.
My bad.
I sold Mr. Joe Sear his first radio advertising.
Wow.
When he opened on the west side of the square.
Wow.
And he was tickled pink. He liked it, and he'd call me, and I'd have to come down there. He wouldn't give me anything on the phone.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed it, calling on my accounts and my customers, and they were all very nice.
Well, to me, in my generation, of course, I think you seem to be the author of the telephone call to the business. Now they may do it somewhere else, but you seem to be the man who actually made that work.
Yeah, so to speak, yeah.
And it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3.
No, it isn't. Back in the early days, the old trading post, people at home couldn't hear the caller. I could, but you couldn't hear, so you'd repeat what they said.
Wow.
But then they came along with an amplifier that you could get the phone on the air.
Wow. That's very
interesting. That was great improvement. Great improvement.
The trading post is, and you tell them in the later years, was a great program for the community.
Yeah, oh yeah, certainly it was. But it's changed a lot too
It
now.
has. It has, but I'm sure you've had some very interesting calls.
Yeah, some very, very interesting calls, and some who didn't know when to quit calling. Boy, they just keep on with the same thing, and of course you can't be offensive to them, but when you tell them, people might have thought I was sarcastic and wouldn't take all the items that they wanted.
Sure.
But it's impossible to let each one mention every item. You'd never get over 2 or 3 calls. So you had to do something.
Yeah.
So people cooperated.
People love not only hearing themselves on the air, but they also, people loved hearing other people.
That's right.
It's more about that than I think selling something sometimes.
And those phone calls to business places like car dealers and other restaurants and so on, people listening felt, well, that sounds like a nice person, like a good place to do business. And when they went, they felt like they knew them. Already knew them.
Because when, you know, a lot of the phone calls that you had, and you know this, you didn't just dwell the whole time on the business. It was just everyday conversation.
Well, you had to chit-chat just a little bit and laugh a little and have some fun.
That made them personable.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yep. Old-time radio. The only thing I'm just afraid that the old, good, original kind of country music is about faded away on radio.
Yeah.
But as I've said, I hope somebody will wake up one day and bring it back.
Yeah. You know, as you think about the people who listen to you over the years, you know, you're a busy man behind the board, the turntables, and the CD players, and then you're not only busy as you're also having to answer the phone, and it's hard to actually talk to everybody.
Yeah.
It's just it's a tough situation. And it's a one-man band.
You had to stay on your toes and be as nice as you could, although you got aggravated sometimes.
Oh yeah, like any job.
Tried not to show it.
Yeah. Well, tell me some of the other people. You talked about Ernest Tucker. You've worked with a lot of great people throughout the years.
Oh yeah, there was an old boy that worked out at EKR. He came here from somewhere. He was around 45, I guess, and he claimed to be the front man for Ringling Brothers Circus. He put up the billboards and all the posters and so forth.
Wow.
And I don't know whether he was or not, but he maintained that story. And then over at Shelbyville, a fellow came named Frank Huber, and he claimed to be of the Winchester Ammunition Rifle Company. Claimed to be a cloakskin to those people and with money and so on. And there was a record shop in the Shelbyville radio, and the station owned it for a while, and Frank and I bought it. And he'd work his radio shift and then go across and haul to the record shop, and I'd do the same. And he got to where he'd write checks and cash them in the record shop cash register. And when he left town, and I still had all of those checks, and I had to pay off the obligation and to the bank and when I left up there.
Well, we've worked with some
some weird characters.
They attract to that kind of business.
Yes, sir.
They may call us weird too.
Yeah. One fellow worked up here. He claimed to have been to Hollywood, and he was gonna go back and make some movies. And I did see him in one program. I can't remember what it was, but it was a cowboy picture.
Yeah. You know, when the old 78s, the old turntable was huge.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going in WKR one day, and some guy, I can't remember who it was standing on the turntable and it was spinning.
Yeah.
But those things were huge, you know, it was amazing.
Yeah, they were.
And spinning 78s,
yeah.
that's something actually I didn't do. A 78 record, tell everybody what a 78 record is.
Well, a 78 record was the original record that was put on the market after, of course, those old 10 type records. And the 78s were wax, and they made the original cast and then printed it from there. And they had a different song on each side. And then the 33 LPs came along and had 10 or 15 different selections on it. But the old turntables you mentioned, they had you had to shift gears on them.
Yeah.
When you played a 78 and then you wanted to play a 33, and sometimes you'd forget.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You put a 33 an album, and you still got it on the 78.
On 78. Yeah.
We've all done it.
Absolutely, you have too. Yeah, boy.
You talked about records that wear out. When you play one, like you mentioned earlier, the actual record would wear out and start popping, and as much as you'd run it, you know.
Yeah, sure would. Crack and carry on.
Get Q burn on them.
And people working there would eat fried chicken and then touch the record.
Yeah, it's like any job, you know, you had to follow somebody. And they either left a mess or...
Oh, man.
But radio business has been good to you over
It has been good. It has been good. I enjoyed every minute of it, and thank the good Lord I managed to make a living and have the things I wanted. Well, a lot of things I wanted and didn't have, but
that's true.
But it's been great for me, and I'm happy now. I'm in good health. The doctor says excellent health, and I get up and get out every day and go somewhere and do something.
How many years were you in the broadcasting business?
Oh, I guess around 50.
50 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, as you saw, a lot of changes, and we've talked about the future.
Yeah.
You know, we never know where it's going, but you've definitely left your mark on Fayetteville, Lincoln County, and we thank you.
I hope it's a good one.
Good. I hope so too.
I certainly hope it's a good one.
Well, Teddy Barnes, ladies and gentlemen, with been in broadcasting for a long time, from WKR to WYTM in the later years, and throughout. We appreciate you coming by and talking to us. I know we could talk for 2 days just on
we
radio.
could, yeah. A lot of stories you shouldn't tell on the air, you know how it is.
Yeah, you know, all the stories of, I know, speaking of you, tell them, some lady called one morning and said she has some kittens to give away. They're just big enough to eat.
Yeah.
And it just made me laugh to see what she meant. But I know you've got thousands of stories, but this lady who used to call, and I know she called you too, she said she liked to come to your home and strip and redo furniture.
Yeah. That's exactly what she said.
It's just like every time it looked like she's coming to the house to strip.
Yeah.
But
and then we had the man on the street. You weren't old enough to hear any of those.
I remember hearing a little. Tell that story.
Well, that was it. It would the Fair Store sponsored it when I was doing it on the east side of the square in the buildings that burned. Charlie Berkland was the manager, and we'd go up at around noontime and stay for about 15 minutes and talk to people who would talk to us. And
you record it?
Yeah, no, it was live.
Live?
Oh, you had to take the remote box that weighed about 50 pounds, and they had to have a telephone line too set up so it would get to the station.
Wow.
And some people, one old guy, I asked him what he was doing in town, and I can't tell you what he said, but it sure did embarrass me. The answer, you know, people say things just so and so,
sure,
and they don't think. And he didn't care whether he's on the air or not.
Yeah. Live radio.
Live radio. That's what it was. And then I'd go on at Christmas. Charlie had a Santa Claus suit, and I'd go down to the basement and be Santa Claus, and we broadcast that too.
Oh,
yeah, little kids, man.
You have done so many things when outside of just radio, from emceeing many different events, from the Fairest of the Fair to, well, the Christmas parade, which was broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done many more things that I
Oh,
can
a
even
lot,
remember.
sure enough. It was a good life, Don. I wouldn't change anything.
Well, I appreciate you coming by this morning and talking to us, and appreciate you letting everybody on Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6 to see you. And, of course, you know, we're broadcasting the YTM signal, so they heard you right here. And a lot of people would actually listen to the television and listen to you, but especially over at the, you know, hospital and nursing homes and things like that.
Oh, well, great. Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate you having me down.
Thank you very much.
And we've been friends for quite a while.
We have. I've been very honored to work with a lot of people, and you're one of them, and you taught me a lot over the years, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Teddy Barnes with in the radio business over the years. Thank you very much for being here, and hope to see you again down the road.
Right. Thank you.